So we'll go ahead and call to order this regular meeting of the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission today, Thursday, June 10th, 2021 at 7:06 p.m. Olivia, would you please call the roll? And I believe that we would then have alternate Commissioner Savell be seated, Mala, if that's correct, in the absence of Commissioner Loader.
Yes, that is correct.
Of course. Vice Chair Murray.
Here.
Commissioner Connolly.
Here.
Commissioner Arnold.
Here.
Commissioner Kohler.
Here.
Commissioner Caius.
Here.
Commissioner Loader is absent. Alternate, or should I call alternate Commissioner Savell?
When doing roll call, yes. After that, he'll be a regular commissioner during the meeting.
Okay, alternate Commissioner Savell.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Rodoni is absent. Alternate Commissioner Moody.
Here.
Chair, we have quorum.
And I'm also here. I think did you call me? No, yes, thank you very much, Olivia. And then let's see where we are. Now we are to,
Sarah,
yes, ma'am.
I believe we have an alternate commissioner. James is not present.
Yeah, I received communication prior to the meeting that he wouldn't be here, so I already had that marked down.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Kohler. Not at all. We will now move to agenda review. Would anyone like to make any changes to the agenda, or would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
And I would second that. I'm just wondering if we want to move item 7 up, because there may be people wanting to talk on that, or should we decide later?
There's no one here other than commissioners and staff right now.
Okay, great. I'll second that.
Okay, if there's,
Oh,
yes, ma'am.
call roll, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Olivia.
Okay, Vice Chair Murray.
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly.
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold.
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler.
Aye.
Commissioner Caius.
Aye.
Commissioner Savell. Do you approve the motion? Yay or nay?
Rick, that's you.
Oh, I didn't hear Savell. I thought that was a C with Cadell. Okay, that's how it came across. Approved.
And then Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we'll proceed with the agenda as approved. We'll now move to public open time. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on the current agenda. All statements that require a response will be referred to staff for reply in writing or will be placed on the commission's agenda for consideration at a later meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Olivia, do we have any speakers for public open time today?
I don't see any speakers present or any hands raised.
Okay, so seeing none, we'll close public open time and move to the consent calendar. Would
Sachi, just
yes.
a comment on public open time. Would it be beneficial for the commission to have opportunity for the public to provide written comments during this time, or for some reason someone didn't want to speak, that sort? I thought we had some sort of policy on that, but
written comments that are provided before provided in advance would be sent out to the commission in advance. Jason, I'm sorry, were you about to say something?
The policy is if we get an email, we give it to you in advance. If it comes so close to the meeting we can't, we will read it into the record during the meeting itself.
okay, very good, thanks.
Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Would any members of the commission like to pull any items from consent? Commissioner Kohler.
Yeah, I don't want to pull anything. I just wanted to mention there's a correction to item 1. There's a little mix up in number 10, which I've already provided staff.
There's another mix up on an earlier item. I believe it was item 7 that Vice Chair Murray brought to my attention. That will also be fixed. It was just a board name was mixed up and that just needs to be corrected. So both of those will be corrected before the final minutes.
All right, thank you. So nobody from the commission wants to pull anything from the consent calendar. Olivia, does any member of the public wish to pull any item from consent?
I don't see any hands raised or any members of the public present.
All right, so seeing none, we'll close public comment on the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move consent.
I'll second with the changes that Olivia noted.
Mhm.
Moved and seconded, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Savell,
Aye.
Chairman Murray, Chairman McAtee. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Perfect. The motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on to the first of our public hearing items. Item number 3, approval of resolution 21-05, annexation of 345 Highland Avenue to San Rafael Sanitary District. Jason, will you please give the staff report?
Sure. This item is so a parcel that is currently on septic can move to the San Rafael Sanitary District system. They have an old septic system that's going to be failing, and so they're looking to replace that and get put onto the sanitary district's thing. We put out for comment. We received no objections. Everyone was either in support or neutral on it out of all the agencies. So staff recommends approval.
Thank you very much, Jason. Are there any questions from the commission?
I have an objection to this.
Okay, I'm sorry. Vice Chair Murray, did you have your hand raised? And then we'll go to Commissioner Savell.
That's all right. Rick, go first.
The subject proposal for the annexation of the 300.
Hold on a second. Commissioner Savell, so we're just going to do questions now. We'll do deliberative comments after public comment. Do you have a question or a deliberative comment?
Both, so I'll defer till later.
Okay. Vice Chair Murray, do you have a question before we go to public comment?
Yeah,
Open the public hearing?
thank you, Sasha. My question is, are we tracking these dual annexation acceptances? And it seems like it's important on this kind of island area there. So it just, as we kind of fill in this jigsaw puzzle, it'd be good once we're at a threshold to see if it's really important with the city to kind of go forward and try to get all the rest signed up and just get that done.
So when you say tracking, you mean, are we keeping a cumulative track of these types of annexations going from septic to the sanitary district to see whether there needs to be some sort of island annexation or cleanup there? Is that what you're asking, Vice Chair?
Right. Our policy is to request a dual annexation agreement before we go forward. And we've had a number of those over the years. And there will be some point in time where we're at a point where perhaps we just push to get the balance of the owners to agree and go ahead and close out this island and get it shifted over to the city.
Jason, do you have
I'm
some
going to yield
thoughts
to
there?
Olivia, who does our clerking on this stuff.
Yeah, it's actually something that I have on my to-do list. I've been slowly moving backwards through all of our historical application files, and I added a new column into our applications log that says dual annexation agreement. And I've been marking yes for all of the parcels that do have dual annexation agreements, so we can have it all in one place, easy to access.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that. Once Olivia is done with that, we actually plan on figuring out how to add a layer into Marin map that'll let us easily show those in the system so we can quickly see, is there a neighboring parcel that actually has this? But first we need to go back, because before I was here, no one was tracking those.
Mhm.
That's great.
That's great.
Mhm.
Okay, any further questions from the commission before we open the public hearing on this? Seeing none, we will open the public hearing on this item. Olivia, are there any members of the public who wish to participate?
I don't see any hands raised and no emails were received.
Okay, so seeing no public members that wishes to comment, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for deliberation. I know that Commissioner Savell has a deliberative comment. Any other deliberative comments? Okay, we'll start with Commissioner Savell.
Yes, thank you, Chair McAtee. The subject proposal for the annexation cannot be approved as it's submitted. The petition's incomplete. The resolution is inaccurate. I can elaborate if you'd like me to.
Yes. So what are you requesting? What would you like to see happen here, Commissioner Savell?
Well, what I'm reading is Olivia, you may want to follow me through with the petition page 1, the resolution page 1, and Exhibit A all reference an Exhibit B. There is no Exhibit B. Exhibit A is stated and it's paginated as page 1. There is a loose map, but it's untitled and it's not paginated. That's my first concern. My second concern is the cover page, resolution page 1 and page 2, and page Q5 of the application identify the parcel as 0.94 of an acre. The exhibit A on the loose map identify a parcel of 1.0 of an acre. And earlier in this report, the executive officer report identifies the parcel as 0.98 of an acre. So we have 7 references with 3 differences. Now I'm new here and I don't know what's tolerable or allowable, so maybe you'll indulge me, but having worked for the Airworthiness Division of the FAA, I'm a little sensitive about this kind of discontinuity.
I'm noting that on Exhibit A, it says containing 1.0 acres more or less, which does not seem to be very specific. Maybe we can have our Commission Counsel comment on that.
I noticed the same thing, Chair McEntee. It has a plus or minus 1.0. And then I see the staff report says that the property is 0.94. I recall Commissioner Savell saying 0.98, but I don't think any of these issues warrant anything other than, a recommended approval unless there's something else that is brought up. But it appears to me, and I think Exhibit A has both the legal and Exhibit B. I think maybe it's just flipped. Exhibit A has the legal description and Exhibit B has the map. So they're both included.
But it's not titled Exhibit B and it's not page numbered.
I think
say Exhibit B attached on the legal description, so I think that it's presumable that the attached map that follows the legal description is Exhibit B. Additionally, the reason for the discrepancy between the acreage is because the applicant initially submitted this to us as 1 acre, but that's right where the State Board of Equalization's costs jump up. So we confirm with whether it was a flat 1 acre or if it was a little bit under the acre mark, so that we could save the applicant a little bit of money on their final application. So that's the reason that you're seeing that discrepancy.
Okay, I might ask for clarification too. I'm well aware of where it says plus and minus. How much? Meaning it's 0.94 is 6% out. Is 12% out acceptable? 15% plus or minus? Where's the outside range of what's acceptable? Plus or minus?
Malo, do you want to address that?
I don't think there's a set amount, Commissioner Savell.
Okay, I just want to know your standards.
Okay, and then as far as the labeling of Exhibit B is, it looks like that's a map or something we're getting in whole from some other place. Would we have the ability to label those things Exhibit B so that it's a little clearer?
Yeah, I mean, we use a template format for our resolutions, and we didn't catch that the 2 exhibits, sometimes we get them as Exhibit A and Exhibit B are flipped back and forth. To me, it doesn't really matter which one's first or second. And you normally don't label the map itself because that's used for other things. So you kind of keep that label off of there because we do need to use that map, but we can easily put Exhibit B and label it, put a little note on top of it. We have handwritten that stuff in if that is what is the desire of the commission.
Well, I might note that Exhibit A says that Exhibit B is attached and there's nothing labeled Exhibit B. So I read these things, I try to make sense of them. So it's nice to be working in such a forgiving environment.
So just for clarity here, I think that I'm understanding that since that map is used for other things, you don't want to label it as such. If there could be some way to in the future indicate on the previous exhibit, the following page is Exhibit B or something like that to make that a little more clear. I think that would probably be helpful. As far as the acreage, it does look like the legal documents are in order because the resolution indicates the 0.94 and the Exhibit A indicates more or less, and those are congruent with each other. If the application is slightly off or the staff report is slightly off, it's really the resolution and the the Exhibit A, Exhibit B that are important here. So those seem to be congruent and seem to be acceptable to council. Are there any other thoughts from the commission on this item?
Not from me, Chair. That was it.
Thank you,
I
Commissioner.
think it's everything I read. I'm a detail-oriented person, and the 0.94 was all throughout, with the exception of the Exhibit A, which looks like something we got from the county recorder's office, which says one acre more or less. So to me, I think your explanation is fine. I don't think we need to label Exhibit B, but if somebody really wanted to, you could put a cover page that said Exhibit B. But that seems
I think
like
that's a good solution as well. You know, clarity is always better. Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, Commissioner Kohler. And as far as the template is concerned, just to make sure that it's clear for future people looking at this where to find the information. I think and if it's discernible, I think that's the window.
Chair,
Okay.
one other comment.
Yes, Commissioner Savell.
Just for clarification, the previous executive officer's report identifies it as 0.98. So again, that's plus or minus, but from my point of view, I'm seeing 7 references and 3 differences. So that's just
As long as the parcel number is correct and the legal description is discernible, I think that it's within bounds. And yeah, ideally everything would line up. Thank you for noticing those things and for the suggestions. Staff, I think you can from here on out do your best to try to make things a little more clear within the structure that we have.
Yeah, I am actually a little confused, Commissioner Savell. When I'm looking at the staff report, it says 0.94 in the second line. I'm not seeing 0.98 anywhere in there.
No, I said prior in the executive officer's report.
What executive officer's report is done on this one?
Let's see, section B, executive officer report.
You know what? We're getting way off track
Okay,
here.
yeah.
Let's rein it in a little bit, where if there was like a material issue to the decision, that would be one thing, but
Can I meet with staff later about this?
sure.
Certainly. Thank you, Commissioner Connolly. I agree. This is not something that's material to the
I
decision we're
agree.
about to make.
We're not trying to do land use measurements here. We're trying to do something that doesn't relate to whether it's 0.98 or 0.96 or whatever. So it makes no difference, really.
Whatever your standards are, that's fine.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this item, or would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move the item, but I also just wanted to comment. I think you described in staff as well in answering Commissioner Savell's inquiry on this. It's a meets and bounds survey. It's a licensed land surveyor. I did read attached was the next page, which happened to be the map. And really the goal is to identify the parcel and the legal description. And it did say plus or minus. So there's some room there to not be exactly precise in terms of the issues I think, Rick, you're talking about, but I think we should move on with this. I'm ready to move the item.
Well, second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Olivia, will you please call the roll?
Of course. Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Savell,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the next of our public hearing items, which is review and approval of the final draft of the Twin Cities Region Municipal Service Review. Jason, do you have the staff report?
I'm going to yield to Jaron, who's the writer of this report.
All right, thanks, Jason. Before the commission this evening is the final draft of the Twin Cities MSR. Since the presentation of the public draft, this MSR during the April meeting, no new public comments were received on the study beyond those that were mentioned at the meeting, of some suggested edits from one commissioner, as well as one request for a small change in the CSA 16 description from a member of the public. This study has ultimately produced one new item for the work plan, as well as one item that's being carried forward from previous MSR, both of which can be seen in the attachments in your packet. The new item is to create a working group between LAFCO staff and the member agencies of Central Marin Sanitation Agency to explore the possibility of consolidation of sanitation agencies within the Ross Valley watershed. The item that is carrying over was part of the Upper Ross Valley MSR, and that is for a working group between Marin LAFCO staff and all the fire agencies in the Ross Valley area. There are two sphere of influence amendments being proposed from this study, with the city of Larkspur and the town of Corte Madera's spheres both being amended to remove the Greenbrae Boardwalk from the SOI of Corte Madera and add the area to the SOI of Larkspur, as the only drivable access to the area is through Larkspur. The SOIs for both CSAs 16 and 17 should both be reaffirmed. So with that, I will turn it back over to the commission for any questions or discussion.
Thank you, Deputy Executive Officer Seibel. Are there any questions from the commission? And it looks like Vice Chair Murray has his hand raised, or was that from before?
No, that's current. So
Okay.
Thanks, Jaren. You know, you're really doing a great job bringing these MSRs together very tightly. This is an area I hailed from since 1960. Still have a lot of family and friends in the area. I think the commission did the right thing in 2007 to reduce the SOI of Larkspur and eliminate Kentfield, particularly for fire service. You have Ross Valley and Kentfield firehouses there. But Greenbrae has a firehouse, and my challenge or thing, I guess, in future discussions is that we used to call it Old Greenbrae and New Greenbrae. So Old Greenbrae is that part of Bon Air closest to Kentfield. New Greenbrae is the part closest to the 101 freeway, Alicia Drive. And if you look at the map, Old Greenbrae is still kind of this area within Larkspur, but not accounted to Larkspur. So very similar to the Greenbrae Boardwalk. And where all of us were growing up, we always thought Greenbrae Boardwalk was with the Larkspur, not Corte Madera, and likewise with sewer service being provided through Corte Madera. So it's good to get that corrected. And I think the challenge going forward is really for Larkspur to kind of drill down on that old Greenbrae part, bring it within their area. It makes sense. Firehouse from Kentfield or Ross should be servicing that area. It should be Greenbrae and part of Larkspur. So that's just one item, but pleasant that you included the Corte Madera thing. I believe when you jumped into it, I said that'd be neat to see, and hopefully everybody enjoyed the history of the area. And good job. Thanks, staff, and particularly Jaren.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? There are a number of resolutions there at the end, as Jaren noted. And I know that Commissioner Kohler and Commissioner Murray provided a lot of comment and input on this study. So thank you very much for your contributions. Any further questions before we go to the public hearing on this item? Okay, seeing no further questions from the commission, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this item. Olivia, are there any members of the public who would like to comment? You're muted, Olivia.
I see no hands raised and no emails were received. We do have one member of the public present, but without a raised hand, I'm going to presume that there is no public comment to be made.
Okay. Seeing no public comment on this item, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for any deliberative comments. Are there any deliberative comments from members of the commission? Okay.
Could I go ahead and make a motion to?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank Jaren and Jason for working with me on my comments. Excellent work. Mala, shall I name each of the resolutions by number, or is it okay to just say approve all attached resolutions?
You could, Commissioner Kohler, you could recommend approval of items 4A through F.
Okay, somehow I'm looking at a page that has a staff recommendation. I'm not seeing what you're saying. So
Oh, I was
just from the agenda. I think you could do.
Oh, okay. I love that. All right. So I'd like to make a motion to approve items 4 and A through F, which include all the resolutions and the work plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Olivia, will you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Savell,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. We're moving right along. We're moving to public hearing item number 5, adoption of final operating budget for fiscal year 21-20. Jason, do you have the staff report?
I do, but before I do, I wanted to make mention, you're not going to see Jaren's face during today's meeting because he has his computer set up to do the countdown clock in case we get public comment. And it's hard for him to switch between a countdown clock and his video screen. So you're just going to see the background of him until we get to the countdown clock needs. I wanted to make sure you're aware that he's not avoiding you for any other reason than that. And so getting on to the next item, I'm going to yield to the Budget Committee Chair, Commissioner Caius, if he wants to make any opening comments.
Thank you, Jason. I'll just say that, again, we talked about this a little bit last month. The Budget Committee met. We went through this with a lot of detail. Thank you to Judy and Barbara for being able to do that. And I feel very confident that what we have now, the appropriate budget for the commission.
All right, and to add to that, real quickly, there were 4 line items in the expense side that got adjusted a little bit. 1 of them, or 3 of them went down. That is the salary line item. Now that we kind of know what everyone's salary is going to be, assuming you approve the executive officer's contract extension or a change later in the agenda. This reflects all of that, and so it's a little bit less than what was in the proposed budget. Our general insurance, we actually got our insurance rates, and it turns out that our workers' comp rate went down considerably, about $2,000, which is why you see that line item drop by $2,000. Our membership and dues now reflects that for Marin Map, we are getting a rate holiday for the year. They're not charging anyone for Marin Map for next year. They have the funds to keep themselves afloat for a year, and given a lot of agencies needed the little bit extra money for their budgets, they gave everyone a rate holiday. The only line item that you see go up is the professional services line item. And this is partly to reflect the fact that in reality, we're going to be doing what I call 1.5 audits in 1 year because we were a little bit behind on last year's audit. And so we have a new audit firm that have now started, but they will not have completed the current year's audit until next year. So what you see is a reflection of a little bit of an increase for that extra bit that they're going to have to do in next year's budget. So our total expenditures went down from our proposed budget to our final budget. And because of COVID, we did no travel this year. We did no conferences this year. We had a lot of things that were just less. So we have a much larger carry forward balance. I estimated we're going to be about 40,000 in carry forward. Or a little bit more than 40,000. We have a little bit more than 10,000 this year that we got in interest on our money that sits with the county and application fees. So all that combined together means we're going to have a carry forward balance for next year of 55,000, which gets us actually to our agency contribution amount, which I know is the one that most people are most interested in. What is that line item? That line item is actually going to be just slightly, and I mean just slightly higher than our agency request was for the current year. So I'm very happy we're able to once again keep our agency contribution line item below what has always been our goal, the 19-20 year, keep that below that for as many years as we can. And so we were able to do that with what we're presenting today.
Thank you, Jason. That was actually the thing I was going to ask you to highlight, but thank you. You did it already. All right. Any further questions from the commission? Okay. See. Oh, Vice Chair Murray.
The professional services that was highlighted, a particular comment on that? Jason,
yeah, that was the audit. The doing more than one audit is the professional service line item because we're going to be doing like 1.5 audits in the next fiscal year. We needed a little bit more money for that line item.
Thanks.
Okay. Seeing no other further questions from the commission, we'll open the public hearing on this item. Olivia, are there any members of the public who wish to comment?
Olivia, unmute yourself.
I see no hands raised and no emails were received.
Okay. Seeing no members of the public wishing to comment, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for any deliberation or motion. Commissioner Kohler or Commissioner Arnold, other members of the committee, any other comments beyond what the committee chair brought up?
No, no comments. He covered it. Thank you.
I'll move the item.
Okay, and a second. Please call the roll, Olivia.
Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Savell,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We will move on to public hearing item number 6, approval of resolution 21-11, update to Marin LAFCo fee schedule. Jason, do you have the staff report?
Once again, I'll yield to Budget Committee Caius to do introductions.
Yeah, I would just add, much like the last one, we did a lot of work on this as the budget committee, and also Jason and I, spent a lot of time afterwards going through the actual charts and the way the charts are presented to try to clarify some of those items. And based on all that, I feel very comfortable that what we have here is a good, rates and schedules.
Any other comment about the process that you went through or things that you consider that might be helpful to the public?
Nothing really. I mean, again, we tried to make this as clear as possible to be able to justify and explain what the costs to LAFCo were and to justify the rates, because there are certain disclosure elements and requirements to do that. And so, that information is also presented. Some of it down below, in the third-party services, again, we try to put in all the significant items that people might have questions about. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will add to that. In the rate table itself, I mean, the main change that occurred was really staff out, the hourly rate for staff. That's really the key indicator of what the change was. There was only one small change that occurred, and that was across the board in the pre-application time. Staff felt when we presented to the budget committee that the amount of time we spend pre-application is a little bit higher than what was in the last rate fee structure. So we increased the hours of that slightly. We went from in some cases 1.5 hours to 3 hours, just because we spend a little bit more time to make sure that the application is done correctly before it ever gets to the official process of getting presented to and being sent out. So that was really the driving force. And at the end of the day, it's a 4% increase. And considering it's a 2-year-old process, that's, a 2% increase a year is really what you're seeing, which is nominal, and really is just the cost of staff time going up. You will notice if you get really technical, 1 or 2 rates actually went down, and that's because they were very clerk-heavy ones, and because the previous clerk was a more seasoned clerk who had more years of experience, her hourly rate was higher than our current clerk position is. So there's some weird places where you actually see a small decrease in rate because of that, but otherwise it's for the most part due to staff rates going up.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like we have questions from Vice Chair Murray and then Commissioner Kohler.
So thanks, Lou and Jason, on working on this. My question, a couple questions. One, do we check against other LAFCos or other agencies on terms of what the fees are? Okay. And then the other part of the question is these third-party fees. I understand, this is like California State Board, California Fish and Game. So we're basically collecting fees for these agencies. We're not passing through the admin costs to those to the applicants, but are we passing on any costs to those agencies asking us, particularly state agencies, asking us to collect their fees?
To be fair, the fees, what we do is we have the applicant write the check to them and we collect it. And then normally there's a form or something we have to send to the agency. So we take their check with our form, and when we're filling out their forms, that is actually part of the fee that we're charging the applicant. So the applicant is paying for us to do all the forms and all the stuff for them. But instead of them giving us a check and then having to turn around and write another check to the agency, we just have them write it straight to the agency and we collect and put it with the form itself.
Okay, so it's all wrapped up in our fee.
Yes, correct.
Including the third-party charges.
Well, the third-party charges are separate, and the applicant will write one fee, will write an application fee to us, and then most of the fees are, if they get approvals, that's when we then say, okay, now write us a check to this agency for this amount, this agency for that amount, and they then write the checks to us, and then we send out the stuff after we get approvals.
Right. Our costs, though, the process that unique application is part of that general fee that the applicant pays, rather than the third party who's paying us. Got it.
Okay, Commissioner Kohler.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right time to mention this, but just I mentioned this to staff on the schedule of fees and deposits. Item 7 just mentions checks, and since at some point we'll be doing online, we may want to revise that slightly, but otherwise, I think it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, we will revise that. We are in the process now of setting up that online payment system. And once we do, that is not something the commission necessarily needs to approve itself because it's a third-party fee, but we can update the documents and stuff to show that it's checked. And we do have that noted in our stuff when we get to that spot of the online system being set up properly.
Okay, any further questions from the commission before we open the public hearing on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this item. Olivia, are there any members of the public who wish to comment?
I see no hands raised and no emails were received.
Okay, so seeing no public members of the public that wish to comment, we will close the public hearing on this item and bring it back to the commission for any deliberative comments or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended fee schedule.
I'll second.
Olivia, will you please call the roll?
Of course, Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Savell,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. That was the end of our public hearing items. We will now move to the business items. Item number 7 is discussion and possible actions on working group for Marin City Incorporation. Jason, do you have a staff report for us?
Sure. So as I briefly mentioned at the last meeting, we had a group of folks from Marin City and other parts of Marin County come to us and say that there's some interest in residents of Marin City in incorporating that area into a new city. Right now, it is an unincorporated area sandwiched between multiple other jurisdictions. And so as part of that, I did some research, reached out to other LAFCos who have done incorporations. They are very far and few between, especially since the 07-08 housing downturn in the economy. There was some changes in how incorporations can work, as well as some changes at the state level as far as like what money is available for cities to actually go after. And so in doing that, I talked with the applicant, or not with the, they're not an applicant technically, but with the working group of people I was talking with in the Marin City area and their supporters about this, and came up with a game plan of how I think might be worthwhile moving forward. Because in talking to the other LAFCOs who have tried to do incorporations in their area, they've always said the biggest hurdle to get by is the cost, and not the cost of forming a city, but the cost of maintaining and running a city. You know, can you get enough property tax, sales tax, special assessments, whatever sources of money, putting them all together? Do you have enough money to actually make a city functional both now and into the long-term future? Because the last thing we want to do is have a city that works now and in 10, 15 years, it goes bankrupt because it worked for a year or two, but there wasn't the long-term growth available to it to be able to do the right thing. And so what has actually started to be done by two other LAFCOs is something, instead of doing a feasibility analysis or fiscal analysis, excuse me, they do a pre-fiscal analysis at this point, where you do a very high level look, because it's extremely expensive and a very long-term project to work on getting a city done. You don't want to spend a lot of time, energy, and money until you know, do you actually have the finances in place, or do you think you can have the finances in place to do it? And that's what a pre-financial analysis will let you do. It'll let you look from a 10,000 foot level, how much money does that area raise in property taxes? And how much does it raise? Is there any sales tax that's in the area? Is there, other sources of funds that are available in this area? And you put all that together, and then you take from a high level perspective, once again, what does your generic city in the area cost to have a public works department, a planning department, a city manager and administrative support, type stuff, and all the various things that you would do. And a pre-financial analysis can give you that high level look, so you can compare, how close are we? Yes, we can raise enough money to cover the basic costs, and now we're going to do that deep dive in and like have to do tax exchange agreements with the county, maybe talk with neighboring communities about who's in it and what and how everything works. And so that pre-financial analysis will give, I think, this group of folks from the Marin City area and its supporters the ability to understand how close are we, what is it looking like, what do we need to be doing? What, like, do we need to go and talk to someone in some other area? And, you know, like, just figure it all out. And that's what so what we're suggesting is, well, what I'm suggesting to you is creating a working group. This would be similar that we do with MSRs in creating one. I would say we have not done this area's MSR yet. This is part of the Golden Gate corridor MSR, and that's not scheduled to occur for, I believe, like another yearish or so before we get to that area. If we had been doing that area, I probably, and had completed an MSR, I would have been saying, well, let's form a working group to do it. And that's kind of the approach I'm going to take with this is let's form a working group to do this. The big difference in this working group compared to all the other working groups we've created from MSRs is this one's going to require outside consultants. As much as I would like to say I could sit down and do the financial analysis work that's being done, this is way more technical than I or anyone else on staff can do. This is really, if you want to get it done right, there's a small number of people who actually do this work across the entire state. So what I want to do is bring in a consultant to do this, do an RFP process, submit it out for the consultants to bid on, find the right consultant to do it, and have them do this. And what we're looking to do is have them do this like in a two-part process. First part, and the only part that we will guarantee will be done, is the pre-analysis side. Figure out how much that costs. The advocates group that I've been talking with has said they will help fundraise and find the money to do it. So it's not going to be coming out of LAFCo's budget to do this. They will help find the money to do it because this is an outside project. But I am suggesting that perhaps staff time be donated to this project. This is we do with any working group. It's not part of an application process. It's just, you know, we donate. And I think that this is a worthwhile cause to allow staff time to be spent. Most of the work, to be fair, will be done by, once we get past the RFP process, most of the work is going to be done by the consultant. So it's not going to be a lot of my personal time or other staff time really working on this. It's really going to be the consultant doing their consultant work. And then once we come out of that consultant work, then we would have another discussion about what do the next steps look like? Is the funding there? Is it not there? The advocates group would then be reviewing the same stuff and be determining what they want to do for their next steps. So that's where, you know, as I put in the staff report, I'm recommending that we form a working group, that we volunteer staff time to work with that group to help get this pre-financial work done, as long as they do the fundraising for it. The one like thing that's in there that's kind of a what I will call an in-between discussion is how we deal with Mala's time that's being spent if we need to use her for any of this stuff, because that is some outside money that we end up having to spend. Even though she's our legal counsel, we have to pay for that, and it's a slightly different thing than paying me my salary where I get paid whether I'm working on this or something else. Mala only charges us only when she's working on something. If something's tied to this, do we want to charge for that? My suggestion is that you kind of leave that to my discretion, because I think there are certain things that she will do that will be advising me and how LAFCo should approach things, and other things that will be advising, not so much advising the working group because she's our legal counsel, not theirs, but where she's like, I guess, let me just give you an example. Like we do RFPs, we have a template RFP. I'm going to want Mala to look at that template RFP to make sure it's correct and good. I wouldn't necessarily charge the advocates for that, because they're the ones, because we're getting the benefit of updating our current template, making sure it's up to date on all of its things. So the next one that comes by, we have an updated one done. But where I might draw her in, let's say during the RFP process, we will ask people to sign the BBK standard contract that they've written for us already. If someone comes back and says, well, we need to have an amendment on that, or we want to look at an amendment, I would show that to Mala and say, is this something that's acceptable, or do we need to deal with this in some other way? That type of time, I would actually have, I would be charging the group for her time for that, because that's something that's specifically for their proposal, not something that's really benefiting LAFCo in and of itself. So that's kind of like where my thinking is where I would charge or not charge from all this time. And it would just look for the commissions. And the other thing, one other thing I want you to discuss and have deliberation about is, do you want to see the RFP, or are you fine with me writing the RFP? I will be working with the advocates group to make sure that they are comfortable with what we're putting out to bid. I want to make sure that they have a comfort level with it. I've actually given them a homework assignment to come back to me with some stuff to incorporate in there of exactly like what type of city are they looking to build? What are the exact boundaries that they're looking to have? Or is there like a couple different sets of boundaries, and we would put that in there so we can put that into the RFP. So the people who are bidding on it can give us a fair bid and say, based on the work that you're looking for us to do, it'll cost X amount to pay for it. So that is my high level staff report, but I'm sure you probably have some questions for me on this.
I have a couple questions for you and a couple for Mala, but it looks like Vice Chair Murray has a question. I'll let him go ahead.
Thanks. Jason, good summary. I was on Aliso Viejo's original incorporation committee in Orange County. There's quite a few things to review that you can't really do on kind of surface. So their high percentage of homeowners, we had many different layers of associations paying for costs that sometimes are unforeseen. And certainly the fiscal analysis is kind of the critical point of making it even go or not. I believe the last time there was any sort of look, at least I was aware of, was the 94903 area in North Santa Fe to jointly look at incorporation there. And you know, there's sales tax base, there's good property tax. I'm not sure if that's there in Marin City in terms of the home ownerships, any sort of associations taking care of their public improvements, and sales tax, I think, is just limited at one shopping area. So wouldn't want to put up any false hopes for folks. It's very difficult in California to do this. I believe it took 12 years for Aliso Viejo to incorporate finally. And there will be certain costs, which I'm a little leery of in terms of being LAFCo. I think if we do dedicate resources, we should have some sort of not to exceed number in terms of staff hours or consultant hours that we assist on this. I do think the initial review and kind of these main points, are they close to this threshold to even make it happen? And then the other part is there was some sort of theme within the letters that we received that seemed to be talking about equity, and we've had adjacent council members of adjacent or nearby cities talking about this theme as well. So they may need to have some sort of survey to really drill down on what their vision is, what that means in terms of equity. Is it environmental justice? Is it environmental issues? Is it economic issues? Is it housing ownership issues? You know, it could run the gamut. Could be education opportunities. You know, who knows? So I would recommend that if we participate, we limit the amount of resources we put towards it. But certainly encourage. I know Marin City initially on our sanitation or special districts group, their rec district participated and showed interest, and that was maybe 8 years ago. So have not seen him come back to MCSDA. Would like to see him. I have seen some of the reps at some of the required trainings for state law purposes. But anyway, that's the main thing. I appreciate Jason you bringing this forward and trying to help.
Thank you, Vice Chair Murray. Got a little deliberative there, but we can do that after the public comment as well. Commissioner Arnold, question?
Yes, a question. What part of the area wants to do this? Like you have the public part up on the hill, which is like very is a part. It works hard. Has to work with I'm trying to think of
Community Services District?
Yeah, no, it's they're really under the thing of the government, of federal government, and they are, and so you have that there. What is the government called? The
HUD, Housing Authority.
It's HUD, yeah. So you have that. Then you have, you know, further down you have the not the government fund, but one people that got to get their unit by working with the government, but they own it. So I'm just wondering, Jason, did they provide any, or did they let you know of anything that would be yes, no, they can't be part of it, or yes, it's fun, you can be part of it? of a city.
Well, any part in the area that is unincorporated can be included in it. The question is, what are you including? I mean, the area directly borders the city of Sausalito. So clearly you're not going to go into Sausalito's territory to do anything. You go in the other direction, and if you go up along 101, you all of a sudden you start to hit Mill Valley. So you get a spot where all of a sudden you kind of got a border there. Then you go into Tamalpais area where they have a CSD. You're going to have some limitations there. The people could join and incorporate if they wanted to, but the Tamalpais CSD has to be looked at. From what I understand, and I know that that there is a member of that group that's on the call, so I will yield to them on the exact borders that they're looking for. But from what I understand, it's mainly the current Marin City CSD is kind of like the baseline of what they're looking at, but there might be some stuff to the side of it that maybe gets pulled into it as well. That is unincorporated right now, but that's part of what the discussion is about.
The discussion will be, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Kohler, a question?
Yeah, just a simple question. Do we normally at LAFCo, I like the idea of the PFA. I think that's a good suggestion, but do we normally get a deposit when we do these kind of studies, like a certain amount of money up front? I know you said that the group are willing to fundraise, but do we get a deposit, or do we just go through and do the work and then send a bill? How does that work?
We will get a deposit. What we will do is we will find out during the RFP process, we will find out how much this is going to cost. And I will go to the advocates group and say, show me the money, for the lack of a better term. We can have a discussion about because they're going to be fundraising. So do we want it all before we start the RFP, or do we say you're fundraising, you're giving us money, and I just make sure that as we're getting bills in, that we're not exceeding those bill amounts. There's a couple ways that we could do that.
That's fine. I don't want to spend time on details. I just was inquiring. So great work. Thank you for the overview. And I think it sounds like a great project. Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions? I've got a couple. Okay, Jason, I've got a couple for you and a couple for Mala. And we've talked about this in our discussions. So your recommendation is based on the fact that we are planning on doing an MSR, and that we have the option to move that, move the timing of that around to, to fit with work we're doing here. So would you plan to also move the MSR up along with this process?
No, I don't plan to move the MSR itself. In some ways, by having the MSR a little bit later, if we get this back, it'll actually give us better information for the MSR itself. So I don't plan to move the MSR work in and of itself. I think we've got a good schedule. And I think that my whole argument is if we had already done this MSR, this would have been a working group recommendation from staff.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. And then as far as the scope of the consultant work, I know you're looking at the consultant doing the fiscal analysis, but I'm wondering if it would be helpful to the advocates group if the consultant were also able to, at a high level, generate sort of a list of options in addition to incorporation that may meet some of their requirements, such as, we've talked about this, activating latent powers of the CSD, or, incorporating or annexing into Mill Valley or Sausalito, or, just not throwing those out with any weight on any of them, but would you see the consultant scope including at least some high level generation of additional options besides incorporation, or would you just see analyzing incorporation alone?
Oh, I definitely plan on letting the person, whoever does the consultant work, give us advice on if there are things that we're not thinking about, what they are. I will say, to address some of the concerns you had, I actually raised with the advocates group when I was meeting with them. And one of the issues, one of the big things that they would like to be able to do is have planning power over their area, and a CSD cannot do planning, the planning department type work. It has to be either the county or a city. So some of the things the reasons why they want to incorporate can only be done by a city and not by a CSD. I did ask the question about, would you be interested in potentially looking at, because one of the things we should be looking at is, if given a choice between incorporation, no incorporation, or being annexed into another city, what order, how would you rank those? And the group that I met with entirely said it's either incorporation, staying unincorporated, being annexed was third. And so they don't really have that interest of being annexed because they'd rather stay unincorporated. So we don't need to look at that avenue, but that was one of the things I brought up with them just to understand where they were at with stuff already.
Okay. And so since LAFCo doesn't initiate any of these things, the fact that the group itself doesn't want to explore annexation means that we don't need to look at that as well.
If we wanted to, I would say we would probably be the ones having to pay for it because it's not, this group's not interested in that.
It would be something that would maybe, if we were to do that, it would be under an MSR, the work of an MSR.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and as you said, it would be under our, if we were to explore options the group wasn't interested in exploring, that would be at our cost.
Correct.
Okay, and then a couple questions for Mala. This is unusual in that we're creating a working group that's not made of existing agencies, that have staff or that have members of the, have established channels here. How do we handle public participation from people who aren't already a part of this advocates group? Because the advocates group has an interest in following a certain path, but we want to make sure that all members of the public who want to participate can is there any obligation on the part of LAFCo or on the part of this advocates group to make sure that they're reaching out to all parts of that group? I should just let you answer before I start making the question bigger.
So maybe this will answer it. If LAFCo is creating the working group, it is going to be subject to the Brown Act. So those meetings will obviously have the same, an agenda. The public will be allowed to participate. It'll have all of that formality that you're used to for LAFCO meetings and in your other public agencies. So I think that might address some of the concerns you have.
I'm sorry, a real quick question for legal counsel, if I can. Are you saying that if we form the working group, even if there's no commissioners on it, we still have to do an agenda and publicize that agenda someplace?
Correct. The commission's creating the working group, and that's going to subject it to the Brown Act. There's certain exceptions when it's less than a quorum of the commission, but that's not, as I understand it.
No, that's what, it would just be me and the advocates working, no commissioner, maybe one commissioner might join us.
That is going to create, it's going to be subject to the Brown Act. The only way to avoid it being subject to the Brown Act is if it's made up of only commissioners and less than a quorum of commissioners.
Okay.
So if it's being made of members of the public with no commissioners involved, that's a Brown Act committee, versus a working groups we've done in the past that are made up of staff of agencies, and that's not subject to the Brown Act? No,
those would be subject to the Brown Act too. So we may need to have a discussion about.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Those.
Okay, and then would we, Amala, my other question for you is would we then consider the advocates group to be the applicant?
I would presume so. This seems like we're at a pre-stage, but that group, presuming that they like what they see in this pre-financial analysis, I presume they would ultimately apply. And they would be, that group, I presume, would be giving us the deposit to pay for the contract.
Well, so even though they're not applying, they are requesting a service from us. So we're going to make there's a distinction there on applicant because it's not. Is that the issue? Yeah.
Sometimes we take, and I'm maybe using my city hat, is sometimes when in land use type of scenarios, when we have a pre-application, we take the application form and make some modifications to it such that, we make it clear that you're going to pay for certain costs, whatever you all agree tonight, and indemnification and certain requirements. So that's where we get the contractual party binding to pay for the cost that we're going to you'll ultimately decide need to be paid for.
Okay, that's it for my questions. Any other questions from the commission before we open public comment on this item? Okay, so seeing none, we will open public comment on this item. Anyone who wishes to participate will have 3 minutes to ask any questions or make any comments. Once we've finished the public comment, we'll close that and we may have staff address it, or the commissioners may have deliberative comments. Olivia, go ahead and open the public comment.
Olivia, unmute yourself, and if you can, remind folks, because I think the public wasn't here when we started the meeting, how they participate.
Yeah, in order to make comment, I see two public present. If either of you are interested in making public comment, all you have to do is raise your hand, and then one of us will give you the functionality to unmute and say whatever it is you have to say about the item being deliberated on. And there's a timer showing on our Deputy Executive Officer Jaren Siebel's page that can be viewed in order to make sure that you're staying within the public comment time. So.
And I'll just note that Gustavo is my aide.
Wow.
Chairman McEntee, I don't see any hands raised, and we did receive emails, but all of them were included in the packet, so those have already been entered into the public record.
All right, thank you very much. Then we'll go ahead and close public comment on this item and bring it back to the commission for deliberation. So the staff recommendation is to authorize staff to create this working group, not charging for staff time, but depending on any given item where legal counsel is consulted, billing for service based on the executive officer's opinion of the type of work being done. In addition, authorize staff to release an RFP for services to do a preliminary fiscal analysis. And Jason asked whether we would like to see the RFP before it goes out. So there's also a list of questions for the commission about whether this should be treated as a working group, should this be treated as a special application where we collect from the applicant, and how do we want to handle the RFP process? So let's start with how does the commission feel about creating the working group and not charging for staff time, but charging for when legal counsel is billed?
Tashi?
Yes, Commissioner Caius.
So first off, I feel very strongly that this ought to be given as much support as we can. I arguably live the closest of any of us to Marin City, although Sashi, between me and you, I don't know who technically is closer. But the issues with Marin City are well known in Southern Marin. The people there don't feel that they have adequate representation, and so we should support that as much as we can in whatever ways we can. I think Jason has come up with a reasonable way to do that by not charging for the Marin LAFCo time. And forming this working group that would facilitate the whole process and giving them a chance to do the initial study before having them commit to a $100,000 consulting fee. So, the idea is a good idea. I certainly support it, would give it all my support, and we ought to try to make it happen.
Sashi, I think you're muted. Did you call on me? I couldn't hear you. For some reason, I can't hear you, but I'm guessing it's me, so I'll just go ahead. I completely agree with Commissioner Caius. I think it's a good project. I very much agree with staff's recommendation, not charging for staff time, giving our executive officer the discretion on.
Okay. Can you hear me now, guys? I think I muted my microphone by accident. All right.
We can hear you. Unfortunately, Commissioner Kohler has frozen. So
Ironically.
I think it sounded like she frozen right at the end of her sentence. So hopefully, Barbara, if you come back, we can have you repeat any comments that we may have missed. Any other? Yes.
I can jump in. I concur with those with the preceding remarks and the staff recommendation to move forward with this.
Okay. Any other commissioners have? Yes, Commissioner Arnold.
I also agree with Commissioner Caius.
Any other commissioners? And I think alternate Commissioner Moody has a thought, but any other commissioners first? Alternate Commissioner Moody, if you'd like to comment.
I am repeating what Craig mentioned, that we ought to have some control over our upper hours. These things can get big and cumbersome if we're not careful. I respect Jason's abilities, but perhaps we should have some sort of upper limit or some way to control our staff hours if this becomes a big deal.
I mean, it's speculative at this point, so I'm uncomfortable assigning some sort of random number right now. I mean, obviously, we'll continue to receive updates, I'm sure, and can evaluate. But Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm recommending right now is really just for the preliminary financial analysis. If things come back from that and it ends up being that this thing moves forward in some way, that is a completely different subject matter and gets us into the application part of the process, which is when we would be charging potentially for staff time to do this stuff. So what we're really talking about right now is that pre-application, that early discussion, not really the long-term goal.
Yep. Commissioner Kohler, were there other comments that we missed of yours?
I'm sorry, I guess my internet went down, so I'm back in. I just want to say I completely support the project. I agree with Commissioner Caius, and I agree with the staff recommendation. So thank you for bearing with me.
No problem. And just to clarify, I don't believe that the commission needs to see the RFP. Does the commission think we need to bring that back, or are we okay with allowing that part of the recommendation as well?
I would think we'd be okay with Jason handling that. And further, as to the cap of the cost, Damon, I'm with you on this. Jason's a professional. He can judge the use of his staff, and I don't think we should put any unnecessary hindrance in doing this first exercise for it.
I'm in agreement that there's a natural cap in that there's a limit on the scope of what staff is doing right now. I hear the concerns of alternate Commissioner Moody and Vice Chair Murray about cost control, but it does seem like, Jason, let me know if you would agree with this, that there's a natural limit given that we have a limitation in the scope from the consultant.
Yes.
Okay. So we do have that limit, and then at that point beyond there, it becomes an application which has a process for documenting and having costs recovered. Okay, so it sounds like we've got agreement on the sort of main points of the staff recommendation. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we support the staff's recommendation and move forward with this with all haste, and go with the working group as described by Jason.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Olivia, will you please call the roll?
Of course, Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Savell,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And Jason, since this is an unusual type of item, as you noted in your staff report, this would be a good one to have updates on as we go, so that the commission and because of the public interest in this, updates on this as it's in progress.
Will do.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to item number 8, approval of resolution 21-12, creation of staff salary classifications. Jason, the staff report, please.
Sure. Legal counsel and I were having a discussion not too long ago about the fact that we've been moving away from the county payroll and HR system, although we still continue to get the same benefits as the county. We're no longer in their payroll system, and that perhaps we need to be creating staff salary classifications for our OPEB systems require, like MSERA kind of requires that we have job classifications. We've always just copied the county because we were in their payroll system. So we would pick your job, like, this job classification, we want to pay X, it's similar to this job. So we put you in, in a certain classification. Because we're separating ourselves from that system now, based on the county, wishing to have us be separated from that system, we should create our own classification. So pretty much what I did is I went to the county system and said, what were the classifications we were using before? The county being, hundreds, if not thousands of employees. I'm sure a couple of our commissioners could probably tell me how many employees there are in the county. They are, we're only 3, and
over 2,000.
Yeah, only one of us is. So like we have 1 employee for every 1,000 employees the county has. I don't think we need to have the same exact classification system that the county does. The county has a junior clerk, a mid-level clerk, and a senior clerk. Well, I just took all 3 of those and said, we're just going to make 1 clerk position that encompasses all of that. And it gives us instead of having someone jump from one to the next, we can just naturally move them up the flow of the system. As a junior clerk becomes more senior, if they want to stay there, or, same thing with the analyst, you have a more entry-level analyst, a mid-level analyst, and a more senior analyst. And each of those positions kind of has it. At the end of the day, I gave you multiple positions. Reality is I'm not looking to grow our staff. I'm just looking to the realization of, in my head, at least, I've always had this dream of, Jaron, as he's done, he was brought in as an analyst and he eventually got promoted up to deputy EO with this latest performance review. So giving staff a natural growth path as well. So that's why you see a few different classifications. but in reality, we're only going to be having 2 people fill those classifications, and then the executive officer kind of put off in its own little world because I'm a slightly different beast based on a state government code. So what you have in front of you today is what are the various types of jobs we would eventually hire, and how would people move from that entry level junior position to the most senior level position, and even potentially to executive officer should the time come that I'm no longer here, for either I retire, I move on, or you guys decide you're tired of me and decide to move me on. Hopefully that last one never happens, but with the rest of them, hopefully. So that's what you have in front of you. I combined job classifications to give us the greatest width, so we don't have to have 20 different classifications for 2 different people. That's my report.
Thank you very much, Jason. Are there questions from the commission on this?
I'll move for approval.
Oh, hang on. Is there any public? Oh, sorry. Question from Vice Chair Murray, and then we'll move on to public comment.
Yeah, thanks. So I provided comments to staff already earlier. Thank you, Jason, for indicating that the ones identified within the staff report basically at full staffing now. So these aren't positions the fund for future staffing. I do want to reiterate, I think it's important for staff to be represented and also be recognized to do that. Jason, I know you personally are in favor of that. And I don't want to create something, some sort of new wheel, something different than what's seen in local government. But you mentioned MSERA, but within the staff report, it doesn't talk about MSERA. In the resolution, it talks about MSERA. So there's job classifications that sometimes are within larger organizations, such as the county, that with that job classification, folks could move from, say, like a project manager to coordinator. Or if you want somebody with an officer title, it could be a lateral move to create someone into an officer title. So it does provide some flexibility rather than kind of binding us with just these 4, this is it, you only have 4 or 5. And I imagine, we're small enough, we could pivot rather quickly. You come back to the commission saying, this is archaic, we need to go back or create new positions because we want to make sure our staff have opportunity to advance, and we recognize their work and their abilities to do that. So those are just kind of my cautions, and maybe staff could speak to the weaknesses of this, and also us being kind of bound to just these few positions where there could be flexibility with MSERA and some of the larger classifications.
So if just to clarify if my understanding of your question, you're asking, one, it is, do these buckets and classes then limit us in some way? And 2, whether or not representation as far as a labor group would provide some additional support to staff or resources. Or am I understanding that correctly, Vice Chair Murray?
Yeah, what's normal and standard is you would have job classifications that are comparable. You could look at in terms of if we're looking to do salary bumps or COLAs. If we're kind of out on our own, doing our own thing, and they're not connected, I see that as a weakness. That in terms of validating this to the public, we're kind of doing our own thing. So I think there is some strength to be connected with larger groups, larger job classifications. But I understand Jason's wanting to create something for our Marin LAFCo group, one that still has the benefits of MSERA, but has some sort of definition of what particularly our job titles are and how folks could advance within those job titles unique to LAFCo. But I guess the question is, I'm a little leery of completely breaking away from any sort of assessment or connection to larger groups with larger job classifications, and then also the question of representation issue. If we're off on our own or a much smaller unit, generally it's really difficult and folks from smaller sanitation agencies recognize this. It's very difficult to get professional representation when your agencies are below 100, say 100 employees. So that would also be a weakness. Maybe staff can speak to that.
Jason?
Yeah, sure. First off, I apologize. I realize you're correct. I did not put in the staff memo itself, Sarah, but I referred to PEPRA, which is, or actually I should say legal counsel referred to PEPRA because she's the one that wrote that section, which is our version is Sarah. As far as the job classifications, I want to be very clear. Our classifications are directly tied to the county. Our junior clerk, our clerk junior analyst position is the same exact position. If you were to take Administrative Analyst 1, which is class code 030A, Administrative Analyst 2, class code 0302, and Administrative Analyst class 3, which is class code 0300. Combine all those together, and you're going to get the same exact salary range as we have for our junior analyst clerk position. So our positions are directly tied to that. I should note that I couldn't tell you exactly when, but my best guess is going to be back in 2000 when CKH was updated, and they basically said LAFCo staffs are supposed to be independent of counties because that was something cities and special districts wanted. That all of our staff at that point lost representation from whatever union they were a part of, and so we haven't had any sort of union representation for 20 years now. Would be my best guess. And so that's not something that we're changing at all. This is something that continues to be the same. It was the same exact thing even when we were in the county payroll system. It was just we had a class classification in which to tie our staff to. So I don't think that we're changing much of anything other than just kind of realizing we've left the county class system, and so we need to create our own. And as you mentioned, I've told staff if they wish to organize, they are more than welcome to do so. I will not get in their way whatsoever. I fully support unions in their efforts and what they do for their workers.
So to Vice Chair Murray's concern about comparables, Jason, how would you address that, or Mala, if you want to address that?
I would say our comparables are exactly as the counties are because I use their class system to create ours. It's just I combine classes together so we don't have a whole bunch of them.
Okay, and Mala?
I was just going to say, I think what Jason is saying is we've been using this system. We're just now making it formal because of our recommendation to have our own salary schedule for our employees. But it's the same, as Jason has indicated, he's merged some of the classes, but it's the same system we've been using.
And Mala, because we empower our executive officer to hire and to pull these things together, I appreciating the clarity of this and the way it communicates to the public, but is this something that is just under the discretion of the executive officer regardless?
You would need to approve the schedule, and then obviously, should he make any hiring decisions, they'd have to be within that range that you.
So then we would have to, and since we're doing this by resolution, yeah, by resolution, we would have to any changes to expand the range or change the range would have to also be done by resolution by the commission.
Right, we'd bring back an amendment.
Okay.
I think Jason made this broad enough that he doesn't foresee, an annual amendment. I think we talked about that some cities you see, annual amendments, but I think this won't require that. It'll be maybe periodic amendments.
Vice Chair Murray?
Yeah, Sashi, actually this is for Mala. I just want to make sure that the employees now and going forward have an opportunity. So for instance, some representative groups do have different groups. So they'll bring in a smaller group, and so they a larger representative group would have folks, for instance, like in San Francisco, they'll have architect group, they'll have the former redevelopment group. So they may be small in numbers, but collectively they reach a threshold where there's some cost benefits for those that are represented. And I wouldn't want us to kind of alienate ourselves and still provide that opportunity for staff that are interested to have that representation. I just want to check with you, Mala. Is that your understanding? They can still do that?
Yes, we've done nothing to prohibit or hinder the employees from creating a union or collectively bargaining.
Okay. Any further questions from the commission? Seeing none, is there any public comment on this item?
I see no hands raised and no emails were received.
Yeah, and I'll just note in my somewhat quick motion, the assumption was alignment with county classification. So,
Correct.
but
Thank you, Commissioner.
interesting intellectual discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Connolly. Okay, we'll close the public comment on this item. Any other deliberative comments? And I guess Commissioner Connolly, if you would like to make your motion.
I already did. Thanks.
Anyone?
I'll
I'll
second.
it. Oh, let Judy.
Olivia, please call the roll.
Of course, Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Savell,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We are now moving on to business item number 9, approval of the 4th Amendment to Executive Officer Employment Agreement. Mala, will you please do the staff report?
Yes, thank you, Chair McEntee. What you have before you is a 4th amendment to the Executive Officer's Employment Agreement. It modifies his salary to $157,726. In a previous amendment, his current salary is $150,009.60. This would be effective July 1. Happy to answer any, excuse me, the salary will be effective July 1. The agreement would go into effect June 10th, should you approve it. The recommendation is to authorize the chair to execute the agreement.
And Mala, just we had a question about the percentage, and if you could just address that.
Yes, the commission authorized its negotiators, which happened to be Chair McEntee and Commissioner Connolly, to negotiate the salary increase with the executive officer. And the negotiators did negotiate the salary increase within the amount that the commission authorized.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Okay. Any public comment on this item?
I see no hands raised and no emails were received.
Thank you, Olivia. We'll close the public comment on this item and bring it back to the commission for deliberation or a motion.
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Olivia, will you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Savell,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Olivia. We are moving on to item number 10, approval to consent to its assignment agreement with Marin MacTech Inc. and 4Point IT LLC. Jason, the staff report, please.
Sure. Try and make this one a little quick for you. We've been using Marin MacTech to do all of our IT support, but over the past year or so, we've been slowly transitioning all of our computers to PC-related computers. The owner of Marin MacTech, Travis Wood, who's been our main consultant, although he does have staff that help us out as well, owns a second company called 4Point. Marin MacTech clearly does what its name is. It deals with Macs. And since we're transitioning out of Macs into a PC world, he's been using his PC staff from 4Point to do the work for us on our PC related issues. And as we are about to finish that transition, he kind of made a request to us if we could officially transition from Marin MacTech to 4Point. And so what you have in front of you is a Best and Krieger drawn up form that allows us to where Marin MacTech, Travis Wood as Marin MacTech will sign and agree to Travis Wood from 4Point will agree to sign the agreement and basically transfer our current agreement. Nothing will change in it. Everything stays exactly the same. The only difference will be instead of us writing a check to Marin MacTech, we write it to 4Point in the future. Pretty much everything else stays the same. So my request is to agree to this consent to agree assignment form, authorize me to sign it, and we will be in a better place for our PCs in the future.
Thank you, Jason. Vice Chair Murray, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, so as commissioners were on iPads, Apple product, should we be switching over as well, Jason, or
No, we can continue to keep the iPads. There's no reason to change those over. I mean, if you're having an issue with your iPad, like I said, he owns both companies, and so when he has a customer who needs support from one side or the other, he just uses the staff. We're just going to be far more 4-point oriented than we will be Marin MacTech oriented as we do this transition. So keep your iPad. If you need a new one, let me know, because those are starting to get old.
Okay, thank you.
I think only some of us have LAFCo issued iPads. Some of us have iPads issued from our other agencies.
Yep.
Jason, I'm just as I'm just going through, I was trying to find the fee schedule. Is that on here, or is it just referring to their previous?
It's their contract that we're transitioning over. We pay a monthly fee to them. I don't remember the exact price, but I can find out for you after the meeting if you so desire.
Yeah, and so and then that monthly fee is just inclusive of all the services that are listed in Exhibit A.
Correct.
Right. Okay. I remember you negotiated something in the last round or two with it. There was I just didn't see that in here, but I think that was just something that we had approved previously.
Yeah, we had approved it. What we're doing is taking that contract we approved previously, and instead of
just assigning it.
Yeah, instead of Marin MacTech's name showing up on it, now 4-point will just automatically show up on it, or something
Okay.
to that. I'm sure Mala has a much more legal way to say it.
Yeah, you're saying it well.
Okay.
It just would be, and I apologize for not bringing this up earlier. That's an oversight on my part. It would be nice to pull all that in together in one piece so that it could be seen all together. That it's been assigned, but this is the fee schedule and everything all together. If we could do that,
okay.
So that's publicly available. Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Okay. Any public comment on this item?
I see no hands raised and no emails were received.
Okay, so seeing none, we'll close the public comment on this item and bring it back to the commission for deliberation or a motion.
I'll move the authorized executive officer to execute the attached agreement with Marin MacTech and 4-point IT.
I'll second.
Barbara and Judy taking turns.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Olivia,
Trying to move us along.
thank you. Thank you, both of you. Olivia, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Murray.
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly.
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold.
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler.
Aye.
Commissioner Caius.
Aye.
Commissioner Savell.
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 11, approval of Marin LAFCo position on legislation for 2021. Jason, staff report, please.
I'm going to yield to our deputy executive officer who's in charge of the Ledge Committee.
And I would defer to the committee chair, Commissioner Kohler, if she has any initial report she wants to make.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank my colleagues on that committee, Commissioner Murray and Commissioner Loader. And Jaron had done great work on putting the report together. As you can see, there's 32 bills that we recommend alignment with LAFCo on, Cal LAFCO on, and all of those would be priority 3, which is basically no real work on our part. And then 1 is priority 2, which is a bill that is always sponsored by Cal LAFCO. So with that, if there's any questions, hopefully staff can answer them. But I do know that bills have moved along, so some of these bills may no longer be active.
And can you just remind us of what that somewhat higher priority 1 is about?
That's an omnibus bill by LAFCO, and Jason, I'll defer to you or Jaron on explaining exactly what that does.
If I may, I'll say that the big point is that it overturns the badly intentioned legislation that allowed Marin LAFCo to force the consolidation of the sewage districts, sanitary districts in Southern Marin. And so it reverses that bill and keeps it from being in effect any longer. That's the biggest item.
Yeah, there is a cleanup item in there, yes, that Commissioner Caius refers to because that action was allowed by special legislation, and that was sort of still hanging open. And there was, I believe, Jason, Claire, correct me if I'm wrong, a request from Cal LAFCO to just sort of clean that up. and that was part of the omnibus bill. But I think, I don't know if you have another comment, Jason, but the priority 3 was aligned with Cal LAFCo priority 2. Can one of you remind us? That was Commissioner Connolly's question.
So they're all aligned with Cal LAFCo's position. It's just with the priority 3, I believe we send a formal letter. With others, I don't believe we send formal
Yeah,
letters.
no, I was referring to, it sounded like there was a priority 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the omnibus.
Yeah,
No.
priority 2 is the omnibus, and priority 2 gives staff the ability to, like, if we need to go to Sacramento and have meetings, do things in order to help support the bill. It's not quite like where if it's one of our own bills and we're like in Sacramento lobbying people, but if like Cal LAFCo says, hey, we need you to help talk to so-and-so and explain to them what this is doing, it gives staff the ability just to do that without too much concern.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, I'll open the public comment on this item. Olivia?
I see no hands raised and no emails were received.
Okay, so we'll close public comment on this item and bring it back to the commission for deliberation or a motion.
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Arnold.
Yeah,
I'll second.
I'll move it. Yeah.
Seconded. Olivia, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner DeVal,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. So we're going to move on to the workshop report. Jason?
I will yield to you if you want to give the opening remarks on that one.
Good. So yeah, I did the summary on this one. We had a really excellent attendance here, as noted in the staff report. 78 people attending, which was pretty great for our first workshop. That was not just internally focused. As those of you who've been around know, we typically do an annual workshop and kind of strategic planning session that's usually pretty internally focused. We do some LAFCo 101 and kind of orient new commissioners and orient members of the public who choose to show up. This was a change that you all agreed to do something a little more externally focused, to try to encourage cities, towns, special districts, agencies who might be interested in, some of whom we knew were already exploring shared services, to use LAFCo as a resource in that. And really, LAFCo, as we repeatedly said, is neutral. We have no particular axe to grind on one direction or another, but we may be the ones approving ultimately a consolidation. So it's useful to have LAFCo involved, so that if there's analysis done, it's done in compliance with what we would ask for anyway, saving time and money. So this was really an exploration of what successful shared services / consolidation models we already have in the county. And then the second panel was around how might one achieve such a thing. And then we just had such a lot of useful information that came from the panelists. I really want to thank all of our panelists for bringing such good experience to this event. And all of that is summarized in the report, as you see there. I think this is something that we would not necessarily need to do every year, but depending on what topic we think is kind of an important topic that we kind of want to get out there, we've shown that we can put something like this together, and we should definitely be considering topics that we might want to do in the future. We might, the next year we might consider going back internally focused, or we might consider going external again. But I think this was very successful, and big thanks to staff for doing all the behind the scenes work on this. Any questions? I know a number of you were in attendance. Vice Chair Murray.
Yes, so Sashi, I echo that. Did a really good job. Very concise, good summary. It's really interesting transition for Marin LAFCo from a Bill Chiat led. With Bill's death, it provided this opportunity to shift from strategic goal setting to a different format, where basically engaging locals and particularly kind of showing off success stories And, a prior executive officer brought forward the JPA legislation and drove that home in statewide meetings to get legislation in place for that. And the benefit is it's real in Marin. There's things with school districts and very simple things such as a bus program in Tiburon that was discussed. I particularly enjoyed the Murray Park discussion, and I think Betsy Swinnerton with Marin County served very well, very supportive, and it was a relatively easy transition. I think Lou and I were in the initial meetings at the Marin Police Authority with concerned folks within that incorporation area. So again, I thank staff and Sashi and others that brought that forward. I think that's really good idea to do that and kind of this replacement for the Bill's system. So good job.
Thank you, Vice Chair Murray. And I will note something I forgot to mention is we did put together a Marin Voice kind of summarizing this that I need to update slightly, but we'll be putting that out, and hopefully it will be something that the Marin IJ might consider printing, and will give us a little further attention to the services we provide.
Great.
Okay.
Mhm.
Seeing no other questions, is there any public comment on this item?
I see no hands raised and no emails were received.
Thank you, Olivia. So then we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the commission. And this one does this one require?
No, this one doesn't require any sort of action by the commission. It was just more of a report out for the commission to know about. The one thing I will add is we do have, for those that couldn't watch or weren't able to participate live in the workshop, we now have it on our website, so you can now watch the workshop anytime you want and learn what we learned the day of. And I also want to personally thank Olivia for doing amazing work behind the scenes to make all that happen. She learned how to use the, and I also want to thank Marin LAFCo because we borrowed their Zoom account in order to do this because they have the webinar function that we don't have. And Olivia sat down and learned how to use that whole system and ran a great workshop without any flaws.
I'll second that. Olivia definitely did an excellent job. She also pulled together very quickly a bio page with all the speaker bios on that, and she did end up having to create a bio for at least one of the speakers, which was really, and she did, actually the person commented that she did a really excellent job of pulling this bio together. So Olivia, you went above and beyond. Thank you. Jaron also provided some support for that. Jason and I worked together on bringing figuring out what the panelists would be and bringing those together. And we also had great support from the Marin County Council of Mayors and Council members and the Special Districts Association, and actually the school boards, all of whom promoted the workshop to their membership multiple times. And I think that was, partly why we had such great attendance. So thank you so much to all of our partners also in that. Okay, if there's nothing further on that item, that was information only, we will move to our next item, which is election of chair and vice chair. Jason, I guess you can give us the procedure on that.
Yeah, so according to the LAFCo policy handbook, every May or the first meeting thereafter, you are to have this item on your agenda. It encourages you to elect someone tonight to the chair and vice chair, although that's not required by the policy handbook. So staff views this as a 100% commissioner decision, and we stay out of the discussion totally. So enjoy your discussion on this.
Okay, if there are no questions, we'll just do public comment on this, and then we'll go into discussion.
I see no hands raised and no emails were received.
Okay, so we'll close the public comment on that and bring it back to the commission. Barbara, Commissioner Kohler.
Yes, well, I think Commissioner McEntee, Chair McEntee has done an incredible job, and I would love to see her continue to lead us. She does an incredible amount of work behind the scenes as well as in front of the scenes, and keeps us on track, which I know a few of us can go off track. I'm one of those. So I would like to nominate Sashi McEntee to continue on as chair for another year. And I would be honored to do that.
And Barbara, I would support that completely and would be honored to second that motion because I think Sasha's doing a great job. And I support it completely.
Well, thank you. That was, I'm really touched. Thank you so much. I definitely enjoy doing this job and I really enjoy working with all of you. So thank you very much for that motion and second. Are there any, if there's no further deliberation, Olivia, would you call the roll on that motion and then we'll do vice chair?
Of course. Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Seville,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye. That's always awkward, isn't it? Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for the vote of confidence. I really appreciate you allowing me to do this job for another year. And thank you so much for the support. Okay, any thoughts on our vice chair position? I want to jump in.
I'd like to make a nomination. And I'd like to nominate the current Vice Chair Murray to another term. He and I
Okay.
have some similar styles. I think that we'll be flying wingman sometimes on our attention to detail. So that's my nomination.
Okay. Oh, Commissioner Kohler.
Well, I think Vice Chair Murray has done an excellent job. I'm wondering if it is a good time to look at some different folks. And I've had the pleasure of working with Commissioner Caius on the Budget Committee for a couple of years. And I think he adds, a different tone and keeps things moving. So, I completely appreciate Vice Chair Murray and his service. It may be time to think about somebody different for now, but I'm good with whatever other folks want to deliberate on.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
Barbara, thank you.
I would second the nomination of Commissioner Caius with acknowledgement that both are outstanding and that Commissioner Murray has done a good job. So
Damon?
second for Caius.
Thank you.
So I'll call the question.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. If there are no further comments, and seeing none, then we will have Olivia call the roll.
And can I confirm which motion we're calling for the meeting minutes?
We have a motion and a second for Commissioner Caius as vice chair, and we had a motion for Commissioner Murray, and we did not have a second.
Okay. Vice Chair Murray.
I'm going to abstain. Thanks.
Of course. Commissioner Connolly.
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold.
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler.
Aye.
Commissioner Caius.
I guess I will vote. Actually, can you call the rest of the commissioners before I vote?
Okay, that's fine. Commissioner Seville.
Can you articulate how this is, what's being voted on? I'm sorry.
Commissioner Seville, you made a motion and there was not a second for your motion, and then another motion was made and a second was on that.
Thank you. No.
Okay.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Commissioner Caius.
Aye. Thank you.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for your vote of confidence. I truly appreciate it, and I will endeavor to do as good a job as Craig has done. So thank you.
And I think we all want to, as we've all, as others have said, well, would want to acknowledge Commissioner Murray, Vice Chair Murray's long service with the commission and enthusiasm and participation in Cal LAFCo and great interest in all things LAFCo and the great work that he's done to date. And I think I speak for the full commission when we say that your contribution has been noted and we're very grateful for it. So thank you very much, Vice Chair Murray. Okay.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay. All right, then we will move on to item 14, discussion and possible approval of nominations for 2021 Cal LAFCo annual awards. Jason, will you give the staff report?
Sorry, forgot I put myself on mute there. Every year, Cal LAFCo does an awards banquet during its annual conference, which is in the September, October, November timeframe. This year, it's going to be in October in Orange County. And last year, they didn't do it because of COVID, and so they canceled the whole conference. So this year, they're doing their awards. They did a slight reworking of their awards in the process, combining a few together. And so there's, I think, a little bit of confusion as to what exactly each award means, because last time it was, in my opinion, much clearer what you were nominating stuff for. My best estimate is that what used to be referred to as like the LAFCo of the Year award has been merged in with several others. And so to the degree that you think that you've done the greatest amount, a great amount of work, and it's no longer like, it can either be your entire body of work or it could be an individual project that kind of like merge those into one type of an award. So in staff's perspective, I think that we have done a lot of good work. And one of the things that they're doing for this specific year is, because there was no awards last year, they're saying that this year's award is really a 2-year award. Who's done the best work over the past 2 years rather than just the past year. And it's fiscal years. So that starts with July 1st of 2019 and goes all the way to June 30th in the, in 3 weeks later on. So my opinion, this LAFCo has done some amazing accomplishments. I think that we should definitely be putting in for what is now the LAFCO of the Year award, which was combined with other stuff, and that we should be doing our nomination for that one. I think it is a right honor. Because of how, when we did our approvals, we technically could take credit for our San Rafael MSR, our Novato MSR, and all the MSRs since then. So we've really done, 2/3 of all of our agencies will either have been an MSR completed or the MSR has been started, because we've started the West Marin MSR. So you're talking out of 60, just over 60 agencies we do MSRs for, we've hit, I think it's just over 40 of them. So that's a heck of a lot of work. And that's not including us redoing our policy handbook, redoing our personnel handbook, doing the workshop. There is a laundry list that I could go into, but I'm not going to save us time tonight. So I would highly recommend that we nominate ourselves for that award. I think that we can go for it, and we would stand a good chance of getting it. There are other awards as well, and I will yield to the commission to make a determination if they think any other awards, we stick out for and should be doing.
Thank you, Jason. Oh, okay. We've got Commissioner Kohler and Vice Chair Murray. So we'll go in that order.
I agree with the staff suggestion, but I wanted to suggest another one, and that is nominating Jason for Outstanding LAFCo Professional, I believe.
Beat me to the punch on that one. Yeah, great.
I just, my short experience on LAFCO has really shown me that Jason is really outstanding. And from what I've heard, and what—
hold on a sec. I'm sorry. I have an emergency. Hold on. I'll be back.
Yeah.
Should I continue?
I think you could continue, and we have a vice chair that can take over while we're.
That's right. Okay, so I think, just from what I've heard and what I've seen, Jason, you move things along. You have caught up on schedules that I think were delayed before you got here, moving forward on the Marin City, which is a unique but needed project. Just jumping into all kinds of things that really put us in a really good place. I think you've done outstanding work. So I don't think I have time to put the nomination together. And but I do think, and I think others know your work much better than I. And I get the sense that, oh, there she's back. So hopefully emergency abated.
No, I was, yeah, somebody fell down, but it's all okay.
Okay, so I think I finished. I just said I don't think I know enough about Jason's work to put the nomination package together, but I'm sure others do.
I'll just add to what Barbara said, that I support that action too. I think, Jason, you've done a great job in the amount of work that we've done, the accomplishments we've done in the last couple of years, particularly in light of how things were positioned prior to your joining. So I think it's worthy of an award. And to the degree that somebody else can structure it, I certainly would assist with the verbiage to insert into whatever the documentation needs to be.
Vice Chair Murray?
Yeah, so it's interesting, LAFCO changed 11 awards to 8, and those that have been to the state meetings, it's pretty arduous when they do go through each of the awards. And I imagine that's probably was the discussion, is to start to condense these. We were successful in prior Cal LAFCOs in receiving awards, and that's really due to a very active executive officer and bringing things forward and being recognized. And particularly, prior officer had a master's in this area and is very interested, and I think really pushed forward Marin to get a Project of the Year award for West Marin study. So now 4 of these areas, the Government Leadership Award, Courage and Innovation Award, and More Effective Commissions is all rolled up in this Mike Gotch Excellence in Public Service Award, which really, to me, kind of weakens Project of the Year award, which to me is significant. We want to see projects that go forward and be recognized. So that's kind of difficult. It'll be interesting to see this change, getting those 4 awards kind of rolled up in this one Mike Gotch Excellence and Public Service Award. To me, it kind of waters down the good work and projects and what we're all about, and wanting to see these projects and what others are doing. So with that, one of the items that does go forward is Outstanding Commissioner. And I forwarded to Jason earlier, I thought Sashi and her work on this commission would be a good candidate and probably could do well at the state level if we push forward Outstanding Commissioner and recommend Sashi. And I'm just thinking of some of the things. It's like, look at our venue. We're here. We are in COVID, much like other LAFCOs, but we did move MCE to get away from the fees that City of Santa Fe is charging for a meeting. I think it meshed in well with our electronic meetings in terms of public engagement. We transitioned to electronic format, implementing a local discussion application of JPAs and public safety consolidations following the death of Bill Chiat and change in local strategic plan and goal setting, or LAFCO, endorsing attorney-attended meetings, kind of raising that bar, guiding our LAFCO to full staffing levels. The work Sashi's done almost single-handedly on some of our personnel rules and other documents. And that was kind of right off the bat. So when Sashi was promoted up to chair position, she kind of took those things on. And then initially, early on, Sashi and I met with Jason. This is kind of pre-COVID times, and would spend our time to go over items that were important. And it was clear that Sashi, despite commitments with family and things, was balancing it and serving the needs of our LAFCO. So to me, I think it's good to push that forward, good to recognize Sashi for her hard work for our community, and also an example for others within LAFCOs to show what a chair could do. And I think that's important. And, I'd like to recommend Sashi for Outstanding Commissioner and put that application forward for Marin.
Wow, thank you so much, Craig. I really appreciate that.
There a second?
How about if Sashi prepares Jason's and Jason does Sashi?
That sounds good. I think that's fair. Well, good. And this one, Jason, I think we just have to get consensus, right? I don't know if we need to.
No, you actually need to make a
Do we?
motion, and it
Yes.
doesn't need to be a
Do we?
resolution, but you need to have a motion that says you are nominating X for X award for Y award, and you can do more than one nomination for any individual award, or you can nominate for multiple different awards, but you do need to say like who you're doing for what.
Okay.
I
All
think,
right.
I think
Is it-
Craig, I think Craig made the motion to nominate, so I'll second that motion.
Okay, hold on. Any public comment on this item? Olivia?
I don't see any hands raised and no emails were received.
Okay, we'll close public comment. And then we've got a motion and a second to nominate Jason for Outstanding LAFCo Professional and myself for Outstanding Commissioner. Was the motion and second?
Were you going to nominate LAFCO itself for the Mike Gotch Excellence in Public Service Award?
Craig, you have the most experience with this. Is this the kind of thing where we should just go ahead and put in for all the things we think work, or should we be selective about how many we put in for?
So Sasha, that's a great question. With this kind of combined and now all these different areas, put in this one award, it may be very competitive. It's possible, and Jason, you could correct me, but if we wait a turn and see next year on the Mike Gotch Award, maybe that's the way to look at it. I wouldn't want to water down the things too much. I do agree, Jason and Sashi, those would be strong recommendations coming out of Marin. And I think both Jason and Sashi could talk about our successes, the Murray Park consolidations and things that we're moving forward and getting done. But we'll bolster up those applications that don't necessarily have to be related back to this full board and commission.
Jason, you have thoughts on the Mike Gotch Award?
I think that Craig is correct that award is going to be very competitive. I honestly, because it's combining so much stuff together, I'm not sure how they're really looking at it. So we are either in a very strong position or a very weak position, and it's really hard to tell based on this is the first time this award has been done. The one thing I will caution us on is we can't come back next year, and we could come back next year and do the award. The problem is we will have done all of the stuff that we're taking credit for now over the last 2 years won't be able to be taken credit for. You can only really take credit for stuff that's done in what will be next fiscal year. So starting July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. I'm sure we're going to do plenty of great things during the year, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be the same list that we have for the last 2 years that we've been here. But whatever the commission wants to do, I am fine with.
Yeah, so Sashi, I'd recommend both Jason and your recommendations for awards and anything that would have been in that Mike Gotch application roll to both of you, and I'd be fine with that.
Anyone else have any thoughts? We can always put in. We can always do all three, unless we think it's going to hurt us in any way.
I will honestly say, I think if we get one, that'll be the most we get. I don't think that Cal LAFCo is going to give 3 awards to the same agency. So we're likely competing against ourselves in an unofficial way between multiple nominations. But sometimes you throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, and that's what you end up winning. So
right.
So let's just do the 2.
Okay.
That's what I think. Yeah.
That's what it's sounding like. So we've got Craig and Lou moving and seconding on those 2 and leaving off the Mike Gotch Award. And if there are no further comments, then Olivia, will you call the roll? Mala, is that sufficient? Is a motion there?
It is.
Okay.
Could I get the motion in the second one more time, just for my own personal records?
Craig, do you want to articulate the motion?
Yeah, so Jason as executive officer award and Sashi McEntee as outstanding commissioner award. And as Damon mentioned, Jason to prepare Sashi's and Sashi to prepare Jason's. And I think would be appropriate to have that brought back to the commission or shared offline between commission. No? Okay, then brought back to the commission so we could comment on it or add anything to it.
The problem is this is due before our next commission meeting. So our
Okay.
ability to bring it back to you and have you review it is not really possible. And I'm willing to bet that if I tried sending it to all of you for comments, Mala would yell at me for a Brown Act violation.
So Jason, I think what would be appropriate then is each individual commissioner could share with either Sashi or Jason, maybe bullet point comments of the strengths and make sure that those get incorporated and within the appropriate time frame.
Mala, do you want to comment on what they can or can't do?
I think maybe if you want to have, if you want to add less than a quorum of commissioners to assist, that might be the way to do it, but I'd rather not get the information sent because then we will have a Brown Act violation. If we're
So with me, if we have one to two others who want to participate in that, okay. Would one or two commissioners want to volunteer to be a part of that process, the review process and the writing process?
Sashi for Jason, I could help on either one
Okay.
as the commission wants.
And I would also be willing to help on either one.
Okay. All right. So we'll have you two on deck, and we'll the three of us can be the subcommittee on that. Would that be appropriate, Mala? Okay. So we can make the motion to have those two nominations, Jason for Outstanding LAFCo Professional and myself for Outstanding LAFCo Commissioner, with a subcommittee of myself, me, Commissioner Kayas and Commissioner Murray as a subcommittee to review and prepare the nominations. Does that sound right? Okay. All right. So that's the motion. And second, Olivia?
I'm still unclear on who called the second. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry. So it was moved by Commissioner Murray, and this was, I believe, seconded by Commissioner Kais.
I think I seconded, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Savell,
Aye.
Chairman McEntee.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you so much for your great comments about our wonderful executive officer. And Vice Chair Murray, thank you so much for the suggestion to nominate me. I'm very honored. Okay, so we'll move on to the executive officer report, which is a verbal report. And those three items there, I think you'll usually take them one at a time, Jason.
Yeah. So before I get into those three items, I also want to say thank you to the commission for the nomination. It's an honor just being nominated, whether or not Cal LAFCo gives me the award. It's nice to know that you all think I'm deserving of it. So in front of you are three items, and I've got a couple of things to mention that are not on the agenda itself, but are quick just reminders for stuff coming up. First off is our budget update. We're getting close to the end of the year, and we're doing pretty well. As you will notice when we approved the budget earlier in the meeting, there's a good carry forward, which that level of carry forward is probably a one-time thing because we had several things that we haven't paid for this year, like going to conferences, traveling, things like that. But we are well within our knowledge of our budget. There's only one line item that we are going to end the year, should end the year over budget on, and it was just slightly, which is our membership. One of our memberships went up a little bit higher than I had anticipated when we did last year's budget. Hopefully this year I've corrected for that, and so we shouldn't have an overage for that line item in the future. And so if you have any questions on that one, happy to answer them. Otherwise, I am going to move on to the next one. Okay, moving on to the next one is actually our current and pending proposal. So I'll give it over to Olivia because as our clerk, she handles this stuff now.
We have received one new application since the last meeting, and we had that one application today approved. There's one application in the 30-day review period. It's for 666 Sequoia Valley Road. That's an annexation to Homestead Valley Sanitary District. Similar situation. I believe they have a septic that's failing, and so they're looking to move off that septic. And that has entered the 30-day review period. So far, the comments we've received have been neutral or positive, and we will hear that at the next meeting. We also have a number of other ones in the wings. We have one coming from Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit. None of these are on the spreadsheet, but they're all kind of on their way. We have like probably 4 or 5 applications in the wings right now, so expect to see a good number come to us in the next 6 months, I'd say.
All right, thank you. If there's any questions on those, seeing none, moving on to working group updates. Not a lot to update since the last meeting. We are, continuing to have discussions with the folks in San Rafael. Starting to have some discussions about the Angel Island issue, and the Southern Marin Fire / Mill Valley potential consolidation is having some discussions. That one's got slowed down a little bit. I think some of the folks on the boards, and Sasha could probably talk about it better than I could, had some very good questions to ask, and so I think they've been trying to figure out how to answer those questions. The staff from those agencies. So things are slowly moving forward, trying to get some of these working groups that had kind of taken a COVID break back up and working again. That's taking a little bit of time to find. City managers, who are sometimes the people that I need to be in these meetings, are very busy, and so finding time for them to sit down and talk with us about things that are important to them, but not as high priority as all the other things of running the city are, can at times be difficult. So we're moving that forward. Things. If you have any questions on it, happy to answer them now, or willing to work with you after the fact. I will add, I should mention, we are the Upper Ross Valley area has a JPA fire department that we're going to be having a discussion with. Ross Valley recently, earlier this year, actually, I don't know how recent you would really call it, but earlier this year, decided not to rebuild its firehouse. So that JPA, which is part of a working group to have a discussion about, can we consolidate from a JPA into an actual, like, either dependent district or independent district in the future? It has asked a couple of the city managers and Jason Weber have asked that we wait for them to figure out how to resolve the Ross Valley not having its own fire department, because that changes the model a little bit of like who's providing services and how is it being paid for, and they need to work that out before they go to us. I understand that, in theory, in June, they're supposed to have figured this stuff out, which we're now in June, but I haven't gotten indication from them that they've actually got the final product together and are ready to start meeting with us. Once I get that indication, I will start that working group up. Have been waiting for it, but they need to deal with this Ross Valley firehouse issue before they deal with a full consolidation later on.
Can I add a clarification to that? It's the town of Ross's firehouse.
Correct.
There are a series of firehouses in the Ross Valley fire. It's just the town of Ross, their firehouse is very, very old, and the estimates to need to be rebuilt were very, very expensive. So the council voted not to rebuild the firehouse, but there are a number of folks in the city who are not real pleased with that. So I think that's what's delaying it. But Ross would still have service from Ross Valley Fire. So just a little clarification. Gets confusing. The names are the same.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it does get confusing when you talk about the Ross Fire Department in the town of Ross. So that is a very good point. That's one of the reasons why, in some ways, it would be good to consolidate them into one district, because you kind of get rid of that whole discussion, and this becomes one fire department for everybody. So that's all my discussion on the working groups. I just wanted to mention a few other things just so you're aware of them. As you might remember, when we approved the policy handbook, or excuse me, the personnel handbook, the commission approved a 980 work schedule. Now that all staff has gotten their shots and society is reopening again, you're going to see staff switching to a 980 work schedule. All 3 of us are actually looking to do that. The goal is, as always, is the office will be open every day. Someone will be in the office every day. Staff is still allowed to do remote working as well, and we're going to continue to do that. So it won't impact the operations of the office, but like on any given Friday, either I or Olivia will probably be out, and on every other Monday, Jaron will likely be out. So just wanted to give you all a heads up that if you're looking for someone on a Monday or a Friday, you might need to pay attention to what when their 980 is, and all 3 of us know who's out on what days, because we share calendars and all that stuff. So it's very easy for us to maintain that system. Also, since kind of society is reopening, you've had a cluster of staff not taking vacation and needing vacation time. So don't be shocked if someone's on vacation for a week or two over the next few months. I personally am planning to, and I haven't figured it out yet, but I personally, after our August meeting, I will likely be taking a good 2-week, if not perhaps a little bit longer vacation, because I realized if I don't take a vacation soon, I potentially bump up against our 300 hours of accrued vacation time. So, a year and a half with no vacations, that stuff starts to add up pretty quickly.
I hear you there.
Yeah. So just wanted to give you a heads up that, you're used to having staff available every single day because none of us were doing anything other than working, but you're going to start seeing us on, 980s and vacation times, but the office will always be open and there will be someone in the office each day. Even if, there's only one person working that day, they'll be in the office. So just wanted to give you that as a heads up. We are not yet sure what's occurring with future meetings, but I'm anticipating that the governor's office at some point is going to revoke the current orders. Cal LAFCo, along with I think 8 other state agencies like that, like League of Cities and the water districts and the state associations, did a joint letter to the governor's office last month and said, hey, we see this date coming up, reopening. What is, A, we want to know what our plans are, but B, you can't just flip the switch and say on June 15th, you meet remotely, and on June 16th, you all have to meet in person. We all need time to figure out how to rearrange our meeting setups. So once we get, the governor's office said, we agree with you, there will be some sort of, warning ahead of time. We have not gotten that warning, but my guess is by our August meeting, we should be able to meet in person again. And we'll have some rules and regulations in place. And as I get that, I will of course let you all know what those regulations are. We might need to find a different office or a different meeting space than MCE, because if they require any sort of social distancing, MCE's room is too small for us. We're compact right now, but if they allow for compact, MCE will be where it's at. So we'll give you more information as we do it. And then the final item I just wanted to throw out there for you so you're aware is earlier today, Olivia finally realized the dream of mine of creating a digital library on our website. It is very basic right now, but we now have it. What you will find on our digital library, and I don't know if Olivia wants to pull it up as I talk about it for a second, is you will find that we have all of our resolutions from 2020 and on our website. Clearly, it'll take us a few days to get all of the resolutions passed today signed, but you can now look at all those resolutions, know what they are. We also have a log of every resolution dating back to our very first resolution, which was in 1965. From 63 to 64 and the beginning of 65, they never did a single resolution, it looks like. Their first resolution passed was in 1965 in November, and for some reason it's titled 65-2. I have no idea what happened to resolution 65-1, but it's nowhere in our minutes. It's nowhere in any files we have. So you can now look at the log and see, and Olivia's now pulling it up on your screen. You can do that. And so our goal from this point forward is after every meeting, once we get the resolution signed, we will put those on the website. They will be remediated. They will be added to the log. And go ahead and click through stuff as I'm talking here, Olivia. Or is it freezing on you? Okay. So the resolutions will be there, and anyone in the general public can research all the resolutions we've ever passed. For the stuff that's not online yet, they'll still need to contact us and we can get them copies of those resolutions. We do have them, but it's just they're not either scanned and or remediated, and that's going to take a lot more work to do. So it's going to be a very slow process, but here's the example of the resource library. You have the resolution library, and then you'll see underneath it, it actually says application library. Right now, we have a log of all of our applications dating back to 1963, although there are some holes in the system that predate Olivia and I being here that we just don't know where they exist. But we have a log for all the applications. That is going to be a much longer discussion about how my goal eventually is put all the applications on our website dating back to 63, but remediation and other issues are going to make that an even slower process. But at least we've got started on it. And I want to thank Olivia for all of her hard work in getting us to this spot that we're at today. And with that, I have nothing else to give on the executive officer's report.
Thank you, Jason. I think you and I talked earlier today about just kind of making sure we're going to have quorum on the August meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Wanna do
Yes.
that?
Yeah, thank you. So August is always like a vacation month, and especially with people coming out of quarantine and everyone wanting to go on vacation now. If you're looking at don't forget, we do have an August meeting. If you're not going to be at that meeting, please let Olivia and I know as soon as possible. We want to make sure that we can maintain quorum at that meeting. We've always been able to get a quorum, but August is always the hardest month, or is the month that we have the most absences. And given quarantine and people getting out, this year might be a little bit harder. So if you're not going to be around at the August meeting, speak up now. And if you wait to speak up, I might rope you into it because you might be who we need for quorum. And if you're the last one to say, I'm going to be gone, we're going to say, nope, you're not. You're showing up at our meeting.
Well, we need to make sure alternates are lined up and that their schedules are there if we need to, if we need to do that as well. So yeah, so make sure that you check your calendar for August 12th and let Olivia know, please, as early as you can if you believe that you're not going to be able to attend.
I'll most likely be on vacation that week, so.
Okay, so we need to make sure to get in touch with Commissioner Rodoni and make sure he's able to attend. Okay. All right. Any commissioner announcements or requests?
Yes, Chair McAtee, I have an announcement, brief one.
Commissioner Savell.
I want to let you know that it's an honor for me to be here working with all of you. After 37 years, this is the end of the road for me. Marin LAFCo will be my final public political assignment before a full retirement. In closing, I'd like to request 15 seconds of silence in memory of Helen Putnam, 2nd District County Supervisor, Sonoma County, California.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Savell.
Thank you.
Any other announcements or requests for future discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn to our next meeting, which will be August 12th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.